My name is Atim Tongana. Welcome to Friday's edition of News Hour right here on the A News channel. These are your headlines. The US says it has reached a Hamas disarmament deal, but there's no response from Israel. China voices what it calls serious concerns over Washington's latest trade restrictions. And we are in Kyrgyzstan for the Central Asia-Azerbaijan Summit. The US says it has reached a breakthrough agreement aimed at disarming Hamas in Gaza. The deal, backed by Egypt, Qatar and Turkey, would see the phased de-weaponization of the group, but it has not been endorsed by Israel or confirmed by Hamas itself.
US President Donald Trump says his administration's Board of Peace has negotiated a plan for the complete disarmament of Hamas and other armed groups in Gaza. According to the proposal, weapons would be surrendered in stages, tunnels dismantled, and Israeli forces would withdraw gradually as agreed benchmarks are met. Security during the transition would be overseen by an international stabilization force, alongside a restructured Palestinian police service. The plan also envisages a technocratic Palestinian administration replacing Hamas as Gaza's governing authority. President Trump described the proposal as a major step towards ending the conflict and thanked Egypt, Qatar and Turkey for helping to mediate the negotiations. However, key questions remain. Hamas has not publicly confirmed that it accepts the disarmament plan. Previous negotiations have shown the group insisting that any discussion of giving up its weapons must be linked to a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. Israel has yet to formally endorse the latest proposal and has consistently maintained that Hamas must be fully demilitarized before any long-term settlement can be reached. The diplomatic announcement also comes as violence continues on the ground. Israeli strikes were reported in Gaza on Thursday, highlighting the gap between political negotiations and the reality of the conflict, despite renewed international efforts to secure a lasting ceasefire.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan met with a Hamas delegation on Wednesday ahead of the US announcement. During the meeting, Hamas briefed Turkey on developments in Gaza and the occupied West Bank, while saying it continues to take a constructive approach towards peace negotiations and Palestinian recognition efforts. Fidan reiterated Turkey's support for Palestinian rights and said Ankara would continue efforts to increase humanitarian aid deliveries to Gaza. The meeting came ahead of the US announcement of a draft framework that put Hamas's phased disarmament on the diplomatic agenda. Now, for more on the story, I'm joined by political analyst Nuno Wahanun Martish. Thank you so much and welcome to A News.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation.
All right, so let's begin here then. What do we actually know about this proposal and how much of it is a diplomatic framework rather than a final agreement?
Well, first and foremost, we are everything is linked to the beginning of the framework of the Trump peace plan for Gaza. This is the first thing. So nothing will be as definitive, and everything has to be linked with that. The good news is that Hamas has accepted, and I do believe that Hamas has accepted because of the situation in Iran, because of the situation that is going on also in Lebanon, which means that it's very difficult for Hamas to continue, at least as a political party, if they don't do what the plan is trying to be. So I do believe that here the diplomatic framework comes from the three countries which are involved: Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt. And being Egypt involved also, I think, gives guarantees for Israel to accept. Of course, that Israel is still waiting to see what is going to happen soon.
Given that Hamas has not publicly committed to giving up its weapons and Israel has not accepted the terms, what are the biggest obstacles that could prevent this proposal from really moving forward?
Look, first and foremost, Hamas hasn't made a statement, though it was promised to make a statement already in the early morning of today. And also senior officials have told the press that Hamas was accepting this deal. So I do believe that the situation and the circumstances are moving towards exactly for Hamas to accept it without any problem. The fact that Israel is still silent, I do also believe, is regarding that. Israel wants to see exactly officially a statement where Hamas agrees to depose its arms. And I do believe that there will be the next step within a couple of days after you have that from Hamas. What are the challenges? You have several challenges. First and foremost, to whom Hamas is going to deliver the weapons. I do believe that this will be for the international force yet to be completely fully organized. Secondly, the question about the position of the Israeli army within Gaza, within the Gaza Strip, and especially regarding the yellow line. I think these will be the two challenges. We know that both Hamas and Israel do not want to move on without the other moving on first. But I do believe that the situation will be Hamas deposing the guns and then Israel withdrawing from Gaza slowly, at least up to the yellow line.
All right, so the issue of sequencing then has been one of the biggest challenges in previous negotiations, with Israel demanding Hamas disarmament and Hamas seeking security guarantees in return. How difficult would it be to bridge this particular gap?
Well, the difficulty is exactly that, the sense that Hamas controls the Gaza Strip. You have small groups. You have to concern also the fact that Hamas is a group, and the small groups who belong, some belong to Hamas, some don't belong to Hamas, who also have material, guns, and who are not willing to depose them, either because they don't trust Hamas, either because they want to continue the fight against Israel. This is the biggest challenge, and this is going to be serious. We also saw some strikes recently from Israel in Gaza. It's not yet clear why they happened. It's not yet clear. The IDF is going to say soon what was the concern behind that. But the question is exactly that. So for Israel to stop the strikes, you have to understand that all these small groups, some are controlled by Hamas, some are not controlled by Hamas at all, have to deliver the guns as well. And this is going to be the biggest challenge in my view.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be a challenge. Now, Egypt and Qatar, including Turkey, have backed this initiative and have played a key mediation role. Does their involvement increase the chances of bringing Hamas and Israel to the table, or does it lack the direct commitment from both sides with their limited influence?
Absolutely, yes, for the first statement you just give. Why? Because first and foremost, Qatar and Turkey have been the Hamas supporters on one hand. Secondly, Egypt has a border with Gaza that sometimes even the press forgets about it. But at the same time, it is important that I think the trusted partner here in this specific situation for Israel is Egypt. So I do believe that this is the fact that Turkey and Qatar, and despite that there is some tension between Turkey and Israel right now, is important to give some trust. And it's important to understand that the goal is to really implement as soon as possible the Trump peace plan and to give a new vision and a new life to Gaza.
So if this deal does indeed advance, who would be responsible for verifying any disarmament process and ensuring that Hamas's military capabilities have genuinely been dismantled?
So that's exactly what we don't know, because the question is this. Israel is going to ask for guarantees that that will happen, and I don't think Hamas will like Israel to be the entity who will verify that that will happen. I do believe that it will be the international force, and we know from past experiences, especially with the UN, like UNIFIL in Lebanon, where this was very much not a solution for the region, which basically UNIFIL did not impeach Hezbollah to attack Israel. I do believe this international force will have a different capacity. If they will be obliged really to take out and to verify the military capability of Hamas, it can be very interesting and will give trust for the Israelis to trust them as well. Let's see what will going to happen. And but this is not yet clear, as I said. In principle, it will be like this, but these are one of the points that have to be defined yet.
Definitely points we'll be finding out. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on A News.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Iran's Parliament Speaker Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf has issued a strong warning to the U.S. following a deadly attack on the Gulf island of Qashm. 3 members of the same family are reportedly killed in the strike. A News correspondent Taraj Shirlilo has more from Tehran.
The Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf has warned that the U.S. will pay the price over a fatal strike on Iran's Qashm Island on Thursday. The message came after 3 members of a family died after their house was attacked. In the early hours of Thursday, U.S. forces struck the island, located in the Persian Gulf, following a 3-day pause in attacks between Tehran and Washington. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai also slammed the attack, which killed the parents and 2-year-old son of the family of 5. He said it echoed the acts of terrorism committed by the Islamic State, also known as ISIS. In a statement, he said the attack aimed to punish Iran for safeguarding its rights, dignity, and independence. Baghai also said, quote, "Such crimes will never generate authority or credibility for the criminals," referring to the American side. In the latest related development, Iran's army said on Friday that in response to the attack on Qashm Island, it fired kamikaze drones at fighter jet hangars, satellite communication systems, and equipment warehouses belonging to the U.S. military at the Ahmad al-Jaber base in Kuwait. Earlier, the army said it had targeted the Sheikh Issa base in Bahrain by firing Arash suicide drones at electricity generators, navigation systems, and administrative and logistics support buildings of the U.S. military. Turaj Shiralilu from Tehran for A News.
As we were just hearing, Iranian forces have just struck an air base in Kuwait. Tehran says it's targeted strategic facilities, including aircraft hangars, satellite systems, and warehouses. It follows similar attacks on targets in Egypt earlier this week.
The war in the Middle East is spreading across the wider region, with new attacks raising concerns about global shipping, energy supplies, and regional security. A drone strike that hit Egypt's Mediterranean port of Damietta on Wednesday has raised fresh concerns about the safety of shipping through the Suez Canal, one of the world's busiest trade routes and a key export route for Saudi oil. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Egypt is an important partner and warned against what he called possible Israeli false flag operations aimed at increasing regional tensions. The strike in Egypt came as fighting between the United States and Iran has intensified once again. The US military says it targeted Revolutionary Guards command centers and drone facilities after Iran attacked American forces in the region. Iranian state media says 3 civilians and 3 Revolutionary Guards members were killed. The Revolutionary Guards say they responded by striking the Azraq military base in Jordan and US assets at Ali al-Salem Air Base in Kuwait. Kuwait's defense ministry also says an Iranian attack hit a building owned by a Chinese company in northern Kuwait, killing one worker and causing significant damage. As security concerns grow, Saudi Arabia has announced plans for a multinational maritime defense coalition to help protect shipping lanes and energy routes in the Red Sea. Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi urged Bulgaria and Cyprus not to allow their territory or military bases to be used for US military operations against Iran. He warned that countries supporting such actions could face consequences.
Over to Ukraine now. 9 people have been killed in the latest overnight Russian strikes on Ukraine. Kyiv says over 300 missile and drones were launched across the country. Russia says its energy facilities have come under Ukrainian fire in the border regions.
Russia and Ukraine continued exchanging long-range strikes overnight, with Ukrainian drones sparking fires at an energy facility in Russia's Volgograd region, as Moscow launched another large-scale missile and drone assault across Ukraine. Russian officials said 5 people sought medical treatment following the Volgograd attack. Wildberries, Russia's largest online retailer, said 2 more of its warehouses were hit in recent Ukrainian drone strikes. The company confirmed that it has provided a second round of financial support to nearly 100,000 sellers whose goods were damaged in attacks. Rival e-commerce company Ozon warned that drone attacks pose a growing risk to its logistics network. In Ukraine, officials said Russia launched more than 70 missiles and around 280 drones overnight. At least 9 people were killed, with homes and civilian infrastructure damaged in several regions, including Kyiv, Lviv and Dnipropetrovsk. A strike on a food business in Pavlohrad killed 3 people and injured at least 10 others, while also sparking a fire. President Volodymyr Zelensky said preliminary evidence suggested Russia used a North Korean ballistic missile in a strike near Kryvyi Rih in central southern Ukraine. 6 members of a family, including 3 children, were killed. Russia said it targeted military airfields, defense facilities and logistics infrastructure. Zelensky warned that delays in supplying air defense systems are costing lives, while Ukraine's envoy to the US, Olha Stefanishina, said Kyiv urgently needs more Patriot interceptors before winter. Russian strikes also hit a drone factory in Kyiv owned by a US company registered in Delaware, in what appears to be the first time Moscow has targeted an American firm in the conflict.
With the country, the president of Ukraine says U.S. envoys Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff could visit Kyiv within the next 2 weeks. Volodymyr Zelensky says the goal is to discuss ideas for reviving peace talks and to allow for the envoys to see the situation firsthand, while Kushner and Witkoff reportedly favor a ceasefire to enable diplomacy. Zelensky stressed he does not believe Russian President Vladimir Putin will agree to halt hostilities. If it goes ahead, the trip would be their first ever made by the pair to Ukraine following several previous visits to Russia. The United Nations has taken the first step towards choosing its next Secretary General, with the Security Council holding its first secret vote. More rounds are expected over the coming weeks.
Behind closed doors, the 15 members of the UN Security Council can choose from 3 options: whether they encourage, discourage, or have no opinion on each of the 8 candidates running to become the next Secretary General. The outcome of these initial votes remain confidential, and the results are not officially released. To secure the Security Council's endorsement, a candidate must receive at least 9 encourage votes and have 0 discourage votes from the Security Council's 5 permanent members: China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom and the United States. The Democratic Republic of Congo's ambassador to the UN, Zenon Mukongo-Nye, said candidates would be informed of the outcome through the permanent representatives of the member states that nominated them. The DRC holds the Security Council presidency for July. He also said the next informal vote will be decided in the coming days. It will be overseen by Denmark, which assumes the Security Council presidency in August. The current Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, will end his second five-year term at the end of December. The selection process will continue over the coming weeks before the Security Council recommends a successor.
After the break, China has voiced what it calls serious concerns over Washington's latest trade restrictions. Stay tuned.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
Welcome back to A News. Spain says at least 19 migrants have died trying to reach the Spanish enclave of Ceuta in North Africa. Close to 50,000 people swam to the territory from Morocco on Thursday.
Migrants were seen swimming towards the enclave using inflatable tire tubes and other items to help them cross. On arrival, some forced their way through a gate in the border fence and ran into the city. Spain's law enforcement agency confirmed the migrants were entering in large groups from the sea through the Tarajal breakwater and that police had been overwhelmed. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said Spain was deploying all necessary resources and is working with Moroccan and international authorities to restore normality as soon as possible. He and Interior Minister Fernando Grande Marlaska are due to travel to Ceuta to assess the situation. Ceuta is a Spanish enclave on Morocco's northern coast that has remained under Spanish rule for centuries. In response to the situation, Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni says her country could suspend the Schengen open border agreement with Spain. For years, Italy has struggled with waves of illegal migrants onto its territory. Meloni said it poses a threat to European security, calling the latest scenes shocking.
The EU is said to establish a maritime rescue center in Libyan center of Benghazi. The aim is to reduce illegal migration across the Mediterranean from North Africa. The center will be created under the EU's Operation Irini and founded by Italy and Malta. The EU has supported and trained Libyan Coast Guard for years and has recently expanded contacts with authorities in eastern Libya. EU officials say the cooperation is intended to improve maritime safety, combat smuggling networks, and reduce deaths at sea. Wildfire crews are battling major blazes across countries in Europe. Emergency services in Spain, Greece, France, and the UK are working to stop the flames from spreading as strong winds complicate firefighting efforts.
Wildfires continue to burn across Spain. Conditions have improved slightly in the provinces of Avila and Madrid. However, the fire in Castellón remains out of control. The blaze has burned more than 1,000 square kilometres, with around 10,000 residents unable to return to their homes. A new wildfire has broken out in the Arribes del Duero Natural Park in northwestern Zamora province. More than 1,000 people have been evacuated. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said at least 10 fires remain active across the country. Near the town of Formariz, the fire has spread towards residential areas, with firefighters and local residents working to push back the flames. Tractors are being used to create fire breaks. The wildfire threat also remains high on the Greek island of Lesbos. At least 50 firefighters and 6 aircraft are battling a blaze there. On the island of Crete, 3 firefighters have died as strong winds are causing flames to spread rapidly. Hundreds of residents and tourists have been evacuated to safer areas. And in France, the wildfire risk remains high. The country's interior minister said severe drought and dense vegetation are allowing fires to spread quickly.
The situation leads us to consider that weather conditions have slightly improved with higher humidity levels and a little less wind. However, the reality is that the risk remains extremely high because we are still facing severe drought conditions. As a result, vegetation remains abundant. What we have observed is that yesterday alone, across the national territory, 26 fires had to be dealt with, and these fires can spread very quickly and become very intense.
A wildfire has also broken out on the Suffolk coast in England. Some residents have been evacuated as a precaution.
China has voiced what it calls serious concerns over Washington's latest trade restrictions. The remarks come in a call between Chinese Vice Premier and the U.S. Secretary Scott Bessent. Laura Westbrook reports.
Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng, who handles China's economic and trade affairs with the U.S., spoke to U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. According to a readout by state media, the Chinese side expressed serious concern over the recent economic and trade restrictions imposed by the United States on China. Now, it described the call as candid, in-depth and constructive, adding that the two sides agreed to enhance communication, build mutual trust and dispel doubt. On social media, Bessent says that he stressed Washington expects Beijing to fully meet its commitments on rare earths and U.S. agricultural products. The U.S. and China agreed to a trade truce that suspended some tariffs and other export controls when U.S. President Donald Trump met his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping last October. But tensions have risen again over fresh U.S. tariffs as President Trump seeks to rebuild his tariff wall. Beijing condemned the 12.5% duties imposed on China over alleged forced labor concerns. The U.S. also imposed new tariffs on 59 other countries. China has also accused the United States of seeking to suppress Chinese companies after Washington issued restrictions on foreign-made robots, citing supply chain vulnerabilities. China was not mentioned directly, but 90% of the world's humanoid robots are made in China. Beijing has vowed to take necessary measures to safeguard the rights and interests of Chinese companies. The move is another point of friction as the world's two biggest economies try to stabilize ties. Experts say while the comments from China show they aren't happy with the restrictions, the call did point to continued preparation for the next leaders' meeting. During his trip to Beijing in May, President Trump invited his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, to the White House for a visit in September. Laura Westbrook for A News in Hong Kong.
Meanwhile, China and the EU are set to hold the second meeting of their trade and investment consultation mechanism in Beijing this autumn, as both sides continue efforts to strengthen economic cooperation. Officials say preparations have been underway since the first meeting in Brussels at the end of June. More than 20 working-level consultations have already taken place, with specialist teams holding detailed discussions on key economic and trade issues. Chinese officials say the objectives is to promote balanced growth in bilateral trade and reinforce what they describe as a stable and balanced trading partnership between China and the EU. Japan says the official death toll from the earthquake that hit the south of the country stands at over 30. More details have emerged about the deadly quake that hit Kumamoto earlier this week.
The death toll from this week's powerful earthquake in Japan has risen to 34, with most rescue operations have been completed across Kumamoto Prefecture. The only area where search and rescue efforts remain underway is a shopping centre where a major explosion occurred. Officials said 7 people were killed in the explosion at the Aeon shopping centre, while 9 others died at the Nippon Paper Industries mill, which suffered severe structural damage.
We are utilizing police dogs from the Kumamoto Prefectural Police, security dogs from the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department, and disaster rescue dogs from the Japan Self-Defense Forces to make a final confirmation to determine whether anyone is still trapped inside the facility. With the 72-hour mark since the disaster in mind, we will continue to work closely with the police, fire departments, and the Self-Defense Forces, in coordination with relevant cabinet ministers, to conduct a thorough and comprehensive search to ensure that no one in need of life-saving assistance remains.
As of Friday morning, 9,600 people had been evacuated across 3 prefectures, including Kumamoto. Around 4,500 households remain without electricity, while 79,000 are still without water. Kyushu Electric Power says electricity supplies are expected to be restored by the end of the day. Temperatures are forecast to approach 40 degrees Celsius over the weekend.
Pakistan has released hundreds of Afghan nationals from its prisons, with all being repatriated to Afghanistan. It follows the return of over 1,000 Afghan detainees from Pakistani jails last week. A news correspondent Tamim Bahiz reports from Kabul.
Afghanistan's Ministry of Refugees and Repatriation says 880 Afghan refugees have been released from prisons in Pakistan and have now returned home. The ministry says the group includes both families and individuals who were detained in Pakistan for various reasons. While the country has not issued a specific statement on this latest release, Islamabad has consistently maintained that Afghan nationals are detained for immigration violations or criminal offences in violation of Pakistani law. Pakistani authorities have also said their ongoing repatriation policy is aimed at addressing illegal immigration and security concerns, and that those without valid legal documents are expected to return to Afghanistan. After arriving in Afghanistan through the Torkham and Spin Boldak border crossings, the returnees were provided with basic humanitarian assistance. They were then taken to their home provinces. The latest returns come against the backdrop of Pakistan's broader campaign to repatriate undocumented Afghan nationals, which has seen hundreds of thousands leave the country over the past 2 years. The policy has drawn concern from international humanitarian organizations, which has called for returns to be voluntary, safe and dignified, given Afghanistan's ongoing economic and humanitarian challenges. Tamim Bahiz in Kabul, A News.
After years of conflict, Syria is looking to rebuild itself. A News was there to explore this new era for the country. Here's a sample from an exclusive documentary from our correspondent Benar Faik, who traveled to northeastern Syria and spoke with residents there who are trying to rebuild their lives.
Across northern Syria, the scars of nearly 14 years of war remain visible. In Hasaka, shopkeepers say weak demand and rising costs are making it increasingly difficult to survive.
Nothing has improved here at all. There is no work, we have to buy water, and all goods are very expensive. Household expenses do not match our income because there are no sales and the cost of living is high.
Now entering Raqqa, a city that was the center of Syrian conflict for more than a decade. For years, it was administrated by the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, and now it's run by the Syria's interior government, reflecting the political and security changes taking place across the country.
A good relationship with
Officials hope a ceasefire and integration agreement with the SDF will support stability and return strategic oil fields to government authority.
I believe they should make the most of this opportunity because President Ahmad al-Sharaa is someone who gives everyone a chance to contribute to stability and security. In the end, they are Syrian citizens. They must receive their rights, and they must also fulfill their responsibilities toward the state and toward the new society.
But daily life remains difficult. More than 15 million Syrians require humanitarian assistance, while hospitals face shortages of medicine, equipment, and reliable electricity. Millions remain displaced, with destroyed homes and limited services preventing many from returning.
Our homes are completely destroyed. We're from Baba Al Khair. There are no standing houses, no infrastructure, no electricity, no water. Nothing has been restored to make it possible for us to return.
Political and ethnic tensions also persist, particularly between Kurdish and Arab communities. While Syria's new authorities have pledged reunification and greater inclusion, residents say mistrust remains. As the country moves from conflict towards reconstruction, the people of Raqqa and Hasakah say peace will depend not only on political agreements, but on whether the new government can deliver security, services, and economic opportunity.
Coming up after the break, we are in Kyrgyzstan for the Central Asia-Azerbaijan Summit. Stay tuned. Welcome back to A News. Kyrgyzstan hosts the Central Asia-Azerbaijan Summit on Friday, focusing on enhancing bilateral relations and economic cooperation. Our Endi Muiksh has the latest from the summit.
We're coming to you from Cholpon Ata, Kyrgyzstan's resort town, where the informal consultative meeting of the heads of state of Azerbaijan and the countries of Central Asia has wrapped up. Now, this particular format was established back in November last year, when Azerbaijan was formally admitted into the format of the traditionally C5 grouping countries. This is the first time that Azerbaijan has participated as a full-fledged member. This summit was informal, so that gives you an idea that leaders could speak more openly, more freely, with not so many restrictions imposed by protocol. We've heard some interesting proposal and some quotes here in Cholpon Ata, so let's go through them, and let's start with Azerbaijan, as it is the first time it's participating as a full-fledged member. Azerbaijan's president Ilham Aliyev told the other leaders that Azerbaijan will be an active member of this consultative format, and for its part will make every effort to further expand cooperation and bring the countries and the peoples more close together. He also said that relations with countries of Central Asia are one of the priorities of Azerbaijan's foreign policy. We've also heard in the opening remarks from Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, who said that Central Asia is experiencing the most successful period in its modern history. He said that Azerbaijan's accession as a full participant in this consultative meetings format marks a new stage in the evolution of the format. He spoke of the region's growing importance and louder voice on the global stage, also adding and reminding everyone about Kazakhstan's election as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. We've heard some proposals. Tajikistan's President Emomali Rahmon proposed establishing a great oil refinery in Central Asia. He made the proposal referring to the ever popular issue of energy security. We've heard from the host, the Kyrgyz President Sadir Japarov, who proposed introducing a single tourist visa for foreigners wishing to visit Central Asian countries, so that they would not have to take out visas for every single one of the countries. Now, this summit, the opening part was that was the main parts that we could hear in the opening remarks. Of course, the leaders had a plentiful agenda of things to discuss, including trade within the region, transport links. As we know, the Middle Corridor, the trade route connecting China to Europe, has become the most popular way to transfer goods that way, and that route goes via Central Asia and South Caucasus, and then on to Europe. Now, before this summit, there was another event here in Cholpon Ata. It was the official welcoming ceremony for Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev, who is here on a state visit. He met with his Kyrgyz counterpart Sadir Japarov for talks. The two sides signed a number of documents, but one of the documents that stands out is the Treaty of Allied Relations. Now, this document was signed. Of course, it needs to be ratified, but it will take the relations between Azerbaijan and Kyrgyzstan from the level of strategic partnership where they were since 2022 to the highest possible level, the level of an alliance. The two presidents then exchanged the highest state awards, orders. They gave them to each other. And that is pretty much a busy week here in the resort town on the shore of Kyrgyzstan's Issyk-Kul Lake. From us here in Cholpon Ata, that'd be all for now.
All right, now work has begun in the first underwater fiber optic cable linking Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan. The project aims to create a data route between Europe and Asia, carrying up to 400 terabytes of data per second. Our correspondent Fariza Karizmurzina has more from Kazakhstan.
Construction is underway on the first submarine fiber optic cable linking Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, a project aimed at creating a new digital route between Europe and Asia. A cable-laying vessel has left the port of Baku and is heading towards Aktau. If weather conditions remain favorable, the nearly 390-kilometer cable is expected to be laid across the Caspian Sea in the next 15 to 20 days. The project is being developed by Caspian Link, a joint venture between Kazakhstan's Kazakhtelecom and Azerbaijan's Azertelecom. The cable was manufactured in China, shipped to Kazakhstan's port of Kuruk, and then transported to Baku in 3 cable baskets weighing a combined 600 tons before being loaded onto the vessel. The ship weighs more than 20,000 tons and uses a dynamic positioning system to stay on course during the operation. Around 70 crew members are on board, and both ends of the cable have already been tested. The vessel also carries a dedicated splicing room in case repairs are needed during installation. The cable will run for almost 390 kilometers and contain 32 optical fibers with a theoretical capacity of up to 400 terabits per second. That's well above Kazakhstan's current internet demand of between 4 and 7 terabits per second. The biggest goal, however, is international data transit. Around 90% of internet traffic between China and Europe currently travels through undersea cables, while only 10% goes over land. The new Trans-Caspian route is expected to offer an alternative connection between East and West, reduce signal delays, and strengthen Kazakhstan's role as a regional digital transit hub. The project is due to be completed by the end of 2026. Fariza Kalimurdzina, Almaty, A-News.
Azerbaijan is strengthening its strategic footprint in Central Asia with a new treaty on allied interaction with Kyrgyzstan, expected to elevate their relationship to the highest formal level. If ratified, the agreement would make Kyrgyzstan Azerbaijan's second treaty-based ally in the region after Uzbekistan. This signaling deeper political, economic, and geopolitical alignments across Central Asia. Joining me right now to discuss this story is research scholar at Western Caspian University, Sheraz Mahmoud Khan. Thank you and welcome to A-News.
Pleasure.
Now, what does this treaty change in practical terms, and how does a formal alliance differ from the strategic partnerships Azerbaijan already has with countries such as Kazakhstan?
Well, you know, the treaty is a smaller part of the alliance because it's a small written document which can be of any cooperation between the two countries and all that on any any subject. It could be energy, it could be anything else. But then a lot of treaties makes a bigger picture, and that is like an alliance. So obviously, Kazakhstan already has treaties with Azerbaijan, and they are in cooperation with each other since 2005 and all that. But this Kyrgyzstan cooperation with Azerbaijan is kind of a continuation to Azerbaijan's commitment to the Central Asian or Turkic states in regards to the cooperation and bilateral terms and trilateral terms. In that sphere, it is one of the extensions that has it. So, Azerbaijan's interest has, a lot of interest in, Azerbaijan has a lot of interest in expanding and making sure that the middle corridor, which is the key right now at this point in time in this complex geopolitical scenario, the middle corridor is the key at this moment for the energy transport between the Central Asian countries, be it Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, all these 5, and Azerbaijan integrating itself last year, institutionally or officially into this to make sure that this middle corridor works good. Because at this point in time, we have wars going on in Ukraine. The middle corridor is the only corridor which is the which is the option not only for the Turkic states, not only for Azerbaijan, but for European Union as well at the same time. So it's quite a multi-vector world now, multilateral, multi-vector, multipolar world, where the countries are looking for their own kind of interest and all that. So Uzbekistan, yes, but this is a very good cooperation between Kyrgyzstan and Azerbaijan now, which will go which will be based on the energy, will be based on a lot of other dynamic cooperation and all that. And this is the need of the hour for not only Azerbaijan, but Kyrgyzstan itself as well, because Kyrgyzstan is already, committed in terms of CSTO and with Russia and EEAU with Russia and all that. But now it's a time to diversify, because right now, because all the Central Asian countries, even the Kyrgyzstan, including Kyrgyzstan, cannot be dependent on the 2 bigger powers in the region. They have to go multi-vector. They have to diversify their cooperation in terms of the security, which is the primary thing right now in this part of the world, not only in this part of the world, but the whole world, because security, there are 2 big major wars are coming in, and these wars are actually, amalgamating with each other and all that. And they are, because in recent times we have seen this middle corridor is there, but then Caspian Sea, among all the other 2 seas, one was Red Sea, and one is this Strait of Hormuz. Caspian Sea was considered as a safer passage for or route, which obviously is a part of Azerbaijan and other countries as well. So Caspian Sea, that vessel, the Iranian vessel, was hit by Ukrainian. So both of the wars are kind of combining with each other, and the interest of each country is different in this part of the region. But at the time of war, Azerbaijan doing this multilateral dialogues and bilateral and monopolar mono dialogues with each other and all that is signaling that Azerbaijan wants to diversify the economic cooperation, the military cooperation, and other securities for itself as well. So this is a very good policy, a foreign policy of Azerbaijan at this point in time, when 2 major wars are happening, when the countries are fighting. Azerbaijan is looking for peace, security, cooperation, and diversification for its own interest. And that goes for Central Asian countries as well, specifically this country, Kyrgyzstan.
Mr. Khan, thank you so much for your time. We would have loved to continue, but we're just running out of time. Thank you once again for being part of A News.
Pleasure is all mine.
All right, moving on to Africa now. Kenyan wildlife authorities are investigating the deaths of 15 elephants in its border region with Tanzania. Preliminary tests have discovered a possible toxic substance, but officials say the exact cause is still unclear.
15 elephants died across southern Kenya's Amboseli ecosystem between June 24th and July 24th. According to the Kenya Wildlife Service, 10 showed similar symptoms, including partial paralysis that left them unable to stand. They died within 1 or 2 days. Most of the affected animals were adult females and calves, with only one adult male among the deaths. The cases were recorded in Amboseli National Park, Kimana Sanctuary, and the Kuku Ranch area near the Tanzanian border. Preliminary analysis by the University of Nairobi found a potential toxic substance in samples from several animals. Further testing is underway to determine its concentration, significance, and source. Initial government tests were negative for the toxins examined, while authorities are also analysing water sources and other possible environmental contaminants. The cause of death could not be established in 5 cases because the carcasses were too decomposed or had already been scavenged. The Kenya Wildlife Service says there is no evidence of any risk to human health and no indication that the condition can spread to people.
All right, that's the news for this hour. Stay tuned to A News for all the latest updates. Thank you for joining me.